Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of PTTP Paranormal UnCut. I hope everyone is having a great day, evening, wherever you may be watching from. Say hello. Tonight we are joined by a great guest. So tonight we're going to be welcome Jeff Belanger to the show. Jeff is an author, podcaster, storyteller, adventurer, explorer of the unexplained. Jeff has written over a dozen books, including Who's Haunting the White House, The Fright Before Christmas, which has been published in over 6 languages. He's an Emmy-nominated host, writer and producer of the New England Legends on PBS and Amazon Prime. And that's just a small snippet of what Jeff has done over the years. So tonight we're going to have a great time talking about folklore, legends of today, and also how he got into the paranormal. As always with you guys, we love your interaction, so please do say hello. And if you have any questions along the way, definitely put them in the comments and we'll try and get them answered. But what I'm going to do is bring Jeff on and get this going. Hey Jeff, how you doing?
Nando, I'm wonderful. Thank
you very much for agreeing to come on. Really excited to have a chat with you with everything that you've done. I'm sure we're not going to be able to cover everything tonight, but we're going to give it a good go. And before we do, just say a few hellos. So we've got Big Rob in the room. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining. We've got Abby. We've got Sarah's watching. And who else? Sarah Guy. Jenny from Ireland, who is the founder of Emerald Isle Paranormal Researchers. Thank you for popping in. So we will say the hellos and anyone else that joins in. But what I want to do, Jeff, is just kick this off about how you got into the paranormal, because I know you grew up in the east coast of New England, and your sort of introduction into the paranormal wasn't actually based on your own experience as a younger lad, was it?
No, but growing up where I did, very historic area of New England, nothing compared to the historic areas of the UK, of Old England, but you know, we had 200 and 250-year-old houses and buildings around town, and I had friends from a young age who said their houses were haunted. Now, where I grew up, it was a little town called Sandy Hook, Connecticut. And the town next to us was Monroe, Connecticut, still is Monroe, Connecticut. And that's where Ed and Lorraine Warren lived. So if you've seen any of the
Yeah.
Conjuring movies, I grew up with those guys. So from the time I was about 13 years old, I used to go see them in the fall. They would do like little library lectures and stuff like that.
Wow.
And I'd see them talk about their stories. I've been to their house and in their museum. And it's I know that had an influence. There's no way around that. So that was certainly part of it. I was like, wow, there's people that just they do this for their work. They go out and look for this weird stuff, and I thought that was intriguing. So I came at this very much as a journalist. I wanted to be a writer, and so I started writing for newspapers. And around October, these are the kind of feature stories that I just ate up because I love history. I love talking to people, and I love the idea that there are ghosts. And that's pretty much what launched the whole thing back in the mid 90s.
Well, that's amazing because you're going off other people's experiences. So, do you remember like the first ghost article that you've writ, or your first story that you writ back then?
Yeah, so I was first asked to work on a documentary film about a ghost town called Dudleytown up in Connecticut, and wasn't really a town because it was never incorporated. It was just a series of cellar holes out in the woods, and it was more like a village, so a ghost village,
Yeah.
if you will. And so we worked on it. We interviewed all kinds of people, gathered these stories. I loved that. There's some stuff that I mean, the history sort of checked out, and other things where you could sort of explain it away once you put all the pieces together. I loved how you could sort of see how the legend came about. Now, when someone says, I've seen a ghost walking down this path right by this cellar hole, you believe them or you don't,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I don't think it's fair to judge their experience if you weren't there. So it was one of those things where I was like, well, there's enough here that I think it's really intriguing. That started my website, ghostvillage.com, in 1999. The first print article I wrote was 1997, and that was an interview with Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Wow.
It was a Halloween feature, and so we talked about their work, their lives, and various local haunts. But that's really what started
That's
it all.
absolutely. And it wasn't until later on in life, as you got older, that you had your first experience with an actual ghost, wasn't it? Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I'd been writing about ghosts since '97, and it wasn't until 2003 where I lost some objectivity as a journalist. I became a believer. I was in Paris, France. I was down below the city in the catacombs, and I was there in a whole other life, whole other work capacity. And we had the day to ourselves. And some of my colleagues said, "Hey, we're going to go to the Louvre and see the Mona Lisa or whatever." And I said, "Yeah, I'll catch up with you later. I'm going to go underground." And so no one would go with me, so it was just me going down below the city and walking around, surrounded by millions of human skeletons, in these tunnels, these great tunnels underneath the city of Paris. And I was walking down a long hallway just lined with bones on either side, and I saw this shadow the size of a man just step out from one side of the hallway and go to the other and then back. And in that moment, I froze because anytime something strange happens around me, my very first instinct is, how can I explain this
Mm.
away? That's job one, right? Like, is there a wind? Is there another tunnel down here? Is someone else down here? Like, explain it away if you can. But if you can't, well, then it gets interesting. And so there was no side tunnel. It was straight all the way to the end. And in that moment, I went, oh, wow. If that wasn't a ghost, then I don't know what else to call it. I mean, this was, and I'd interviewed a lot of people about their ghost experiences at this point. And I always took the position, like, I believe that you believe. I can't call you a liar. I wasn't
Mm.
there, but you seem, moved by whatever you experienced. And it's a profound thing, right? When you see a ghost, like, it changes you a little bit, especially the first time. You just go, I mean, shoot, the 10th time it does too. You just go, wow, this is big, right? There's more to it. And so it took some time to sink in, but in that day, I admit it, I became a believer. That was my first. I haven't had many over 25 years of doing this now. I can count on one hand, but you never forget them,
No,
do
no,
you?
I think your first experience is always going to be one that sticks with you. And it is great.
Yeah.
Growing up, you were taking on a lot of people's stories, and what kind of things did you do to see how it checked out then? So I take it you went and did some research and tried to put the story together to try and have an outcome of what it is.
So one of the things I loved about it, I went to school to be a writer, and I remember taking a mystery writing class from a great professor in college, Sam Toporoff, if anyone cares. But he talked about the way you write a mystery story is you write it backwards, right? So you start with the crime, and then you know who did it, and you just keep going backwards, right? And then you have other suspects, and then you have motives, and you go backwards, 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 backwards until you get to the start, and then you just write it forwards. And I was like, that's brilliant, right? And that's, I mean, he didn't really crack the code. I mean, I feel like if you think about it, that's how it works. And then I went, when I got into the paranormal, I said, that's how the paranormal works. We start at the end. This building's haunted. Why? By who? Like, why? They see a little girl in a red dress that's been seen in the upstairs window, peeking out, or in the hallways. Okay, well, that's today. Let's go back in time. And I love that time travel. I love, well, how long has this building been here? Who lived here? Who died here? What events took place? What transpired? Who else has seen this thing? And I mean, if I can find the origin,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's the holy grail for me. And I love that deep dive into history. Some people are into the equipment. They want to sit there all night with all kinds of expensive stuff that flashes and beeps and hisses. And that's fine. That's great. I love that people do that, but that's not my thing. My thing is, I want to dig into the books and the history and find out everything that I can that took place in a
No,
building.
no, it's like you're bringing history back to life, isn't it? Like going back, you start off, like you're saying, with the potential investigating the haunted location, and then it's going back in history to bring it back forward to say, well, this is what we think it could be or who it may be. But
The so I mean, just to touch on that. So I got to interview a great Scottish historian named Des Brogan, from Edinburgh, years ago, and I will do his Scottish brogue no justice. Forgive me ahead of time, but I remember he was just like, "Lad, history's a damn good story. It just needs damn good telling." And I went, "Oh, that's great, isn't it? Like, it's true, right? It is true." And the thing about history is that we are haunted by it, whether that's big stuff like battles and wars and things like that, or accidents or murders, but also little things within our own families. We are haunted by our parents and grandparents and great grandparents who helped shape us, not just with our DNA, but our beliefs, our values, where we
mm,
live, what we do, all those things. And so, to me, the very simplest definition of what a ghost is it's a connection to the past. Like that's what it is. We can debate and argue about all the other stuff, right? Hereafter and energy and EMF and all that. I mean, I don't know. I've never died. But the simplest definition is that it's history demanding to be remembered. It is the past coming to the present, because I think we have unfinished business. There's lessons we have not learned, and we're still sort of trying to process it and work it out in the hopes that we don't repeat history.
no, that's a good way of looking at it too. And with the stuff that you've done, so you're involved with a lot of research. You go into history. Now, a lot of the times when you watch things on YouTube, TV, they bring up like the demonic entities and things like that. So along your journey, and I know you've done a lot of like folklore and legends as well, but with the demonic side of things, have you ever looked into that in a bit of more detail? And what's your thoughts when it comes to the darker side of the paranormal?
Sure. So I was raised Roman Catholic, which I
That's
feel like
yeah.
is an important disclosure to make. Like you have to disclose that,
Yeah.
Nando, right? It's like,
I was brought up
it's
as
like
Roman Catholic as well, and when we mention
yeah.
it to my mum, she's like a big no with all this. So I don't know if it was the same with your background.
I'll fix that for
Okay.
you. So you got to say, all right, mom, bring her on. Call her up, get her on speaker. So, mom, us Catholics, here's the thing: if any religious group on earth should believe in ghosts, none more than Catholics, right? Like, and here's why: because there's God, and there's
Yeah.
the devil, and there's angels, and there's demons, and there's saints, and there's sinners, and there's purgatory. What is purgatory? It was invented, right? Like, it's like you could get upgraded or downgraded. You know what I mean? Like, it's this place where, because there was a time where the church was teaching, hey, look, only the top 1% of the top 1% has a shot of getting into heaven. And then people like us were like, well, I'm just not that good. And the great philosopher, comedian Sam Kinison once said, if you're going to miss heaven, don't miss it by an inch, miss it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so people sort of threw their arms up. So the Catholic Church invented purgatory. You go here and maybe people can pray for you and upgrade you to heaven one of these centuries. Um, However, I think that there's lots of room for ghosts, especially in Catholicism. I mean, in the Bible, when Jesus comes back from the dead and stands before his disciples, he says, and this I'm quoting the Bible, "You look as though you've seen a ghost. I'm not a ghost. I'm flesh and blood." Jesus does not say, "There's no such thing as ghosts, you idiots," right?
Mhm.
Like he says, "I'm not a ghost." He discerns himself from a ghost. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? So if Jesus believed in ghosts, and if you're a religious person, maybe you should too. Now, back to the demonic. Um, eh, as soon as someone starts bringing up demons, you're now speaking from a belief system point of view, right? You're not speaking from, like, if I said to you, I was in the catacombs and I saw this shadow the size of a man go from one side to the other
Yeah.
and back. That's it. That's all the information I can give you. Whether that was a really good person, a really bad person, just some echo from the past, I don't know. I have no
Mhm.
idea. I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel scared. I was just sort of startled. However, someone else would have that same experience. Someone else, exactly where I was at that time, would say, "I'm scared. I'm down below ground, surrounded by bones. It's dark. That's a demon." And I said, "It's just a ghost." And someone else would say, "I'm hallucinating." Right? I'm a skeptic. There's no such thing as ghosts. I'm hallucinating. All three of us saw the same thing. Which one of us is right? And the answer is all of us from our own perspective. So I think we use these terms to try to give ourselves a sense of control over something that we absolutely can't control. When you're in a building and you hear something knocking about, right? You hear footsteps, you hear someone walking, maybe you see an apparition. We put a name on it because it makes us feel better.
Yeah.
you, here in the US, there's all these great old bed and breakfasts around Virginia, which is sort of near Washington D.C., and tons of them. These great old buildings, they have these signs that say George Washington slept here. George Washington, our first president, right, slept here. And and a lot of them are haunted because they're old. They've been around for 250, 260 years. And so there's a ghost, but they haven't seen it. They just hear footsteps and stuff. And they say, "Well, who's the ghost?" "They're all haunted by George Washington, Nando." How is that possible? Right? like he's haunting 27 bed and breakfast. He stayed there for 2 nights back in, 1785. And, he's just going to stick around forever. So I think that's us saying, I'm putting a name on it because George Washington would never hurt us. The reality is it could have been a gardener who died in
Mm.
1950 who was drunk and fell off the roof, but that's not a very romantic story. So I think when we start talking about the darker side, you're talking about your belief system. And the thing about, uh, you know, I mean, is there even such a thing as evil? And I'm going to ask you that question. I'm asking you, do you think there is such a thing as
What, in
evil
the spirit world, or are we talking?
anywhere, anywhere at all? It sounds obvious. So go ahead,
The way I
answer.
would answer it would, like, with based on stuff that you see, yeah, there is evil based on
Okay.
people with what they do, like certain crimes, and
Right.
that's the way I would answer that. Is like looking at what you see on the news, what people do to each other, then it can
Of
be quite
course.
evil. And I think that's a term that we use a lot, don't we, when we describe a person that's done something wrong.
Which I don't think is fair, by the way.
Okay.
I think we overuse it, right? Is there any difference? I live in Massachusetts now, not too far from Salem, where we had our famous witch trials, and there was no shortage of witch trials in Europe too, of course. But it still stings around here because we bring it up so often. The thing is, if I accuse you of being a witch, you might say, "No, I'm not," which is exactly what a witch would say,
Yeah.
right? And there is nowhere for us to go now. I say you're a witch, you say you're not, and if I'm of a higher social standing than you, or a position of power above you in any way, I win, you lose, and that's it. You're a witch, and there was a time where you could be put to death for
Wow.
that, even though you did nothing wrong. And so today we don't use the word witch because it's so antiquated, but we say evil. If a tornado tears apart a trailer park and people die, is the tornado evil? Right? No, right? It's chaos. It's
Mm.
chaotic. So I think in some cases, yes. I mean, shoot, I told you before, I grew up in Sandy Hook, Connecticut. That's where the famous school shooting happened. That was my elementary
Wow.
school, right? I mean, that was brutal, so sad, so tragic. I mean, absolutely awful. And I get that people would want to call that an act of evil. But I also know people that knew the shooter and taught him in school and said he was such a broken kid. He was just chaos. And that chaos turned destructive and people died. And it is so tragic and so awful. I understand anyone who wants to call him evil. I won't argue with you. I get
Mm,
it. I do. I really do. But at the same time, if something's bumping in the night and you smell sulfur, is it fair to call it evil? What do you do with evil? What do you do with demonic? I believe there are people who are destructive and dangerous in life, and in the afterlife. I would imagine maybe that continues. And so, but to call them evil, you're now taking away the
yeah.
humanity of it, and there's nowhere to go. And it's a way to other and lower another group of people or an experience when you don't understand it, so I get it. I get people have, I mean, I've talked to people who've been punched, scratched, pushed downstairs, had a leg broken by a force they couldn't see. Like, they were pushed downstairs, no one was around them, they broke their leg, and they said, this is obviously demonic, obviously evil. I don't know. You break into my house, Nando, in the middle of the night, and I catch you at the top of the stairs. I'm
Yeah,
pushing,
yeah, no, no.
right?
I would do the same if someone
Right?
broke into our house. Yeah, 100%.
Of course you would. Yeah. And are you evil? No, you're defending your turf, you
So,
know? So anyway, it's a touchy subject. I get it. And this is what I love about this subject is we get to ask these huge philosophical questions outside the realm of religious
mm.
dogmas. So I say I was raised Catholic because you got to know the baggage that we carry, Nando. We both carry this luggage around with us. There's nothing we can do. But yeah, but it's an amazing
No,
thing.
definitely. Just a few comments when we touched on religion. Jenny, she said, my friend who is very religious, does not believe in ghosts at all. Now, I've heard that before, that people are very religious, but I don't understand how they can't believe in ghosts because you're praying to something that we've not physically seen, and I don't know. How would you with that?
Yeah, Jenny, I got you. This is what you tell your friend. Be like, hey, listen, I was watching this podcast with Nando and Jeff, and they said you're wrong. That's it.
Simple as that. You're wrong. Hey MJ, hope you're
Oh
doing
no,
well.
MJ's watching. I'm leaving. I'm shutting off. Get me out
Bless
of
her,
here. Good to see you,
she's cool.
MJ. Give my love to Duncan.
Brilliant. So what else have we
Yeah,
got here?
so
We
she's
got
great.
Raymond from Newton Paranormal. I had a friend who made a comment during Sunday school in church years ago that he believed all ghosts and aliens were demons.
Yep, I've heard that.
So
Uh, yeah, I mean, we're all welcome to our theories. I can't tell you what they are for sure, but the thing about a belief system is when you buy into a belief system, you got to go all the way,
mm,
right? And this is the dangerous part. Oh, see, Jenny, you're the best. You get this. So on the one hand, if it doesn't, and believe me, I've had some of these same discussions. There's people like, well, if it either comes from God and it is good or angelic, or it comes from the devil and it is bad and it's here to like mess me up. There's no middle ground. What I love about where I live and the part of the country I live, which has a lot of the same sensibilities as where you're from, um, MJ. I remember one of the first times I went to the UK, I got to go up to Ordsall Hall up near
yeah.
Manchester, and I was talking to one of the docents, and Ordsall Hall, for those who don't know, it's 700 years old, and it's this old manor house. And so I said, hey, is this place haunted? And he goes, don't be daft, it's a 700-year-old manor house, of course it's haunted, and I was just like, of course it is. I'm sorry to ask a stupid question. And I love that it didn't have to be this big debate over like good and evil or this or that. It's just like, yeah, weird stuff happens here. And and those of us that look into this, we can go, especially in areas where we live, and we could say, yeah, that building there, people talk about it being haunted. The one right next door that's just as old, nope, nothing, right? Why is that? And this is where I lean back on my journalism, right? If I were to interview separately 5 different witnesses who all said I saw a man in a blue shirt and a white hat come in and rob the bank. And all 5 said the same thing independently. Well, I wasn't there, but shoot, what are the odds they're all lying? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, so you start to sort of piece the evidence together, and we use the word ghost because we don't have another one. Spirit, I don't know, pick one, but we have a word for it, and there's a word for it in every language. So I adore that, and I get that it shakes up the sensibility of some people. If you see a ghost, then oh no, does this negate my religious teachings or my religious learnings? I don't think it does. I don't think it has to affect it one way or the other, but some people disagree. Like Jenny's friend, who we're not Jenny, stop being friends with her. That's the easy answer. You know, there's other
But
friends.
no, I get that. And with going into the paranormal, I know that you've done paranormal investigations. You've gone to many locations. How do you go into an investigation then? So for yourself, because there's so many different ways people do things very differently. You've got equipment, you've got, people use their own sensors. But how do you like to go into a location to investigate for the paranormal?
Um, yeah, for sure. I definitely a 6-pack of beer, some pizza, um, or I'm not going in. Forget it. Ask MJ; she'll tell you. It's true. So, uh, when it's me working on my stuff, I'm there to chronicle. I don't expect to see anything because most of the time it doesn't happen for me, which is
Mm,
okay, right? I mean, I'm still psyched to go into these places. Often we get access after hours or whatever. It's really cool. I love that. So we go in and uh, for me, I mean, a small team, 2 or 3 people
yeah.
max. If someone wants to bring equipment, they can. I've had all that stuff. I have it, but I don't really use it anymore because if something's there, I want to see it. I want to feel it. I will have done the research ahead of time. We're going to walk around. We're going to know what happened in which room and what have you, and then just kind of have a sit down, hang out, take pictures, document what we're doing, maybe film it, and see what we see, experience what we experience, and hopefully I can get something out of it, right? So if nothing else, I'm connecting with the location and with its history. And that's a really cool thing. Like that's the best part. I know the TV shows have screwed us up, right? They make us think that ghosts happen every 7 minutes before we cut to commercial. And it's just not like that, as you know, right? You can go all night and nothing happens. And or you go all night, nothing happens, and you review your stuff weeks later and you go, "Oh, I caught something. I just didn't know it at the time."
Mm.
So, but we have a saying around here, especially in the southern U.S. A bad day of fishing is still better than a good day at work, and so that's kind of how I look at it. That's how I look at it with paranormal investigation. If I go there and nothing happens, it's still better than a good day at work.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
like you said, and I've touched on this with a few people, and MJ as well. We had her on a podcast, and she's great as well. For me, when you watch TV, I think they sort of portray the paranormal in a bad way because every time you watch it, something happens all the time, and then people get in their head.
Yeah,
Whenever
I
you
know.
go to a haunted location, something's definitely going to happen. But like you said, that's not the reality, is it? You can sit there and literally nothing's going to happen at all. It's mad.
Yeah, so I mean, my day job, I've worked for the show Ghost Adventures for the last 17 years on every single episode that's ever aired, and I get it. I get it. I get shows like that. On the one hand, I'm thrilled that we get to further the discussion, that we can take it out of when I started in this in the 90s, people didn't talk about ghosts. And now you can. Now you can freely
Mm.
talk about it. And that's because we've moved it into popular culture. Although it seems to be going back down underground lately over the last couple of years, which is great. I'm not complaining. I think it's wonderful. That's where we're more comfortable anyway. But I get how, what you're watching on a TV show is a highlight reel. Like you've got 8, 9, 10 cameras filming for hours and hours. It's then paired with music, tense moments, evidence that was gathered, and it looks like it was just nonstop action. When the reality was, it could have just been a
Mm.
minute of something intriguing, and we don't bore you with all the equipment set up. So I get it. It's not a realistic view of what a night of paranormal investigations like, but at the same time, if it calls to you, if these shows inspire you, go do it, right? Go do it for yourself. Learn what it's really like and have your own experience. Ask and that's I can always vibe with a ghost investigator, right? We can always find something to talk about because you're asking questions. You say, if someone says, "Hey, the ghost appears at midnight in the main hall of this old building," well, shoot, where do you want to be at midnight,
Yeah,
right?
definitely,
You want to be
definitely.
there. Like, let's go, let's try it. And even if it's wrong, well, shoot, I mean, I tried. That's cool.
Definitely. Um, MJ's just put in there. Ask Jeff about the library door at Belgrove Plantation. Is it?
Yeah, that's it. Belgrove, Belgrove Plantation. So MJ did an event there. It's in Virginia. It's this historic old plantation home in the States here. And I was placed in the library for my zone, and we had groups coming and going, and we shut the door so we didn't hear noise from other parts of the house. And all of a sudden, the doorknob was just click 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 click, click, and you do the thing. Hey, everybody, shut up! Look it right, and we're looking at it. Turn the light on. It's still just clicking. You're seeing it. I took my phone out. I filmed
Wow.
it. I opened the door, right? You look on the other side, like who's messing with us, and nobody's there. Nobody's even in the other room that's adjacent to it. So shut the door again. It did it like on command for minutes. We filmed it. I'm like, I don't know what else to do. Like it's still going. And one of the people in the room with us, his mother owns the house. So he's in there all the time. He's like, this doesn't happen. This is not something that's just a commonplace thing. And at the same time, is Hollywood going to make a horror movie out of that? No, right? Doorknob jiggling for like 2 straight minutes. No, but at the same time, it was profound when you're there, when you realize like, hey, I don't expect anything to happen, but it does, and I could film it. Lights on, lights off. I mean, we started to put K2 meters and stuff near it. We're like, I don't know what else you want to do. Like, it's just this thing is just obviously dancing for us. So let's ask. And it's one of those things that you kind of look back on and you go, yeah, and I'd been there before. That was, I think, my second time to Belgrove, and it didn't happen the first time, but it did that night, and a room full of us got to witness it as well as the camera on my
That
phone.
must have been cool to see that, and then it was doing it on command and everything. So, and what's
Yeah,
amazing is
no,
not the equipment actually going off; it's the something to do with the location as well. And I think that's even better because then people can't. Because a lot of people make comments about equipment, don't they? They have their different opinions,
yeah, of
but
course.
where you've got something actually linked to the location itself, that must have been a cool moment for you guys to witness that.
And that's why. So I've done stuff in. I remember this was many years ago. I was in a place called Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky. It's great old tuberculosis sanatorium, huge building. And I watched some people walking down the hall, right? And they had like EMF and they had K2 and they had like 6 things they were holding in their hands and they were looking, 6 inches in front of their face and just walking down the hall and going, nope, nothing. There could have been 10 meters away. There could have been a ghost going, hello, I'm right here. And they'd be like, nothing. There's nothing at all. I mean, they're just looking right down at their hands. I'm like, you're in this amazing building. Put the stuff down, look around, walk around, breathe this place in. um, I don't want to miss anything. Like, when you talk to paranormal investigators, you go, "What's your most profound experience?" No one has ever said, "Oh, this K2 meter flashed 3 times," right? No, it's like I saw something. I heard something. I heard someone call my name. I felt something touch me. The tangible sensory experiences are the things that we never
No,
forget.
definitely, definitely. And we were saying about being Catholic. You're a family man as well. You have children. What do they think about what you do? Like, do they get involved, or if you don't mind me asking, I know that's going a bit personal, but
Yeah, yeah.
because when we say what we do, like, to my family, I'm doing a podcast tonight with someone that looks into the unexplained, and they give me that side eye look. Do you know what I mean? But what's their thoughts
Yeah.
of what
Well,
you do?
ask your kids, what are you doing tonight?
Sitting on their
Yeah,
computers.
I'm watching telly. Yeah, playing Xbox or whatever, right? Uh, no, my family's not into it. They're not against it, but this isn't their thing. One of MJ's events, I got to take my wife and daughter over to Coombe Abbey in Coventry, and it was so cool. My daughter, so they went. I was stuck in another part of the building, like doing the ghost hunt, and then my daughter would pop around, and she was in one room and like, okay, people go into this room all by themselves alone. It's really scary. And she's like, I'll do it. And I'm like, that's my girl. Like, right. We've gotten to see and do some really cool stuff because of my weird job. But at the same time, it's just not her calling. which is fine, totally fine. I want her to do whatever she's passionate about. However, I couldn't be more disappointed because she has said, I think I really want to go into like film and writing. And I was like, no, no, get a real job, anything but that. But anyway, of course, I'll support her. I only have one kid, lest people think I have one favorite and don't talk about the others. I only have two.
But no, it's great that they, they don't really into it, but they support what you do, and that's amazing.
Oh,
Um,
of course. And that's it. I mean, we all have our own different hobbies and beliefs and interests, and uh, none of them offend me. Just because I'm not interested in it doesn't mean I'm not happy for
no,
you. And so, in fact, I think about people I know who are couples and stuff, and they ghost hunt together and they live together, and I'm just like, it's okay to have separate interests too. This keeps it's good to have some common stuff, but it's also good to do your own
but it's
thing.
funny. It's like with me my wife has been doing this for over 10 years now, and originally
Mhm.
I used to be the person like you're going to go and play Ghostbusters with your friend. I had no interest in it whatsoever. And it wasn't until I had an experience whilst at home, I saw a full apparition of my grandfather, and it was clear as day.
Yeah.
And it was from that moment that that sparked that interest. Like, could there be something more? Do I need to look into this more? And since then, I've loved it, and I've got to meet so many great people, like doing the podcast and everything.
So what when you saw your grandfather, was in your home
It
or
was
was
in
it
my
the
home,
home he
yeah.
lived in?
So the night
Were you there?
basically, I was sat in the front room. My wife and the three boys were in bed, and like the big, heavy, like fire doors. I would explain. I would close those doors so they didn't hear the
Mhm.
TV. And I'm just sat there watching my TV, and the door just flew open, and then like this figure come through, and he was wearing the hat that he used to wear. He had the rollie in his hand ready to smoke. Like, he looked really dapper,
Yeah.
and you could see, like, I could see his full facial features and everything. And do you know what, I know I wasn't asleep because I've never run upstairs to my wife so quickly. It was that was my first experience, and it completely shocked me to, like, I didn't know what to do, to be honest. It was crazy. That's the way I took it.
That's how long did this happen after he'd passed?
So
How much
he
time had it been?
passed away in 2000 and oh no, he passed away 2007, and my oldest son would have been about 7 years or so. I think it was around 2014 that it happened.
Oh, so
Yeah,
a
a
good span of
good span
time.
of time.
So
Like, yeah, it wasn't just
yeah,
directly
yeah, yeah.
after he had passed away. This is years after he passed away.
I've thought about this a lot because the most common experience that I hear about, and I've interviewed thousands of people now about their ghost experiences from all of my different parts of my work. The most common is almost exactly what you just described, seeing a family member. And I love that it was 7 years, right? So think about this. If he had just passed, you're still sad. You're still mourning. You're in a very deep state of grief. Him showing up a week later, that's not good. That's not good for you, right? That's not going to help you. That's not you haven't processed your feelings yet. And I think they know that. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like I think um but 7 years is not long enough span where he's like, "Hey, I'm still with you, buddy." Like it's and that doesn't change. That doesn't end. I think you are a his DNA is literally in
Mm.
you, like you and in your kids and so on. And I adore those stories because it gives you hope, doesn't
Yeah,
it? Like more hope than sitting in the pew at Catholic
yeah,
church.
yeah, definitely.
It's
And when that happened, it
yeah,
sort of made me think, because I know there's been stages in my life. Like, since then, I've had three boys since he's passed away, and I'm like, does he know? And I don't know if it was like his time to say, do you know what? I'm just going to casually stroll in and let you know that I'm here, and that's your answer. And
yeah,
I'm like, wow. But yeah, since then, it's sort of changed the way I saw things and my belief system as
I
well. And it
bet.
was just like one of the craziest things. Like, and do you know what's great? I knew
Yeah,
it was him, but it still scared me in some kind. Do you know what I mean? It was
of
just like,
course. Yeah,
oh, I'm still a little bit scared
yeah.
here. So,
Well, because it's not proper. It's not how you thought the world was supposed to work, right? The dead stay dead. They don't open the door and pop in on you. And that's yeah, of course you're scared. That's but now that you can look back on it, it was a gift, right? I mean, this was a wonderful gift, even though it was shocking.
It was definitely a gift.
It's no less, yeah, no less a
Yeah.
gift. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you for
I love those
listening.
stories.
So MJ's asked another question.
Shut up, MJ. This isn't your show. You already on
Do you
one.
think Bigfoot and other cryptids are just elemental spirits
Elementals.
that we occasionally see? Well, that's a good question.
No, MJ, they're demons. Next question. It's all demons. Uh, all of these things are labels. All of these things are labels. You see an animal that doesn't make sense for where you live, and um, one of the things I love about the talk about cryptids is that if you lived somewhere a while, 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, you've pretty much seen every animal that your area has to offer, right? Raccoons, squirrels, birds, deer, maybe skunks, like whatever comes by, you get a sense of it. And when an animal sticks out, when you go, well, wait a minute, that's not a dog or a cat or a mountain lion or whatever, whatever's around here, you start scratching your head and saying, well, what could that be? And sometimes, I mean, animals leave tracks, they leave fur, they leave all kinds of other stuff. So I love the fact that we've had to come up with names to identify some of these strange things, like
Yeah.
Bigfoot, right? Or Sasquatch, whatever. Um, I mean, I've never seen, I have the same skeptical questions everyone else does. Why don't we find a dead one? Find me a carcass, find me a skeleton. I get it, of course. But then why are all these people are making up the same story for what? Like they don't get anything for it. I've spoken with hunters who I've hunted these woods my whole life. I was looking for deer. I was in a tree stand and this 8 foot tall, hairy, upright creature walked by and I just watched him until he was gone. What do you make of that? I don't know. I don't know, but we got to put a name on it,
Mm.
right? Bigfoot, Sasquatch. It's a label. Labels are dangerous because we got to fit everything into a box, but I also get how they sort of help us. And so we call it something. We call it a cryptid. We call it an elemental, a fey folk, fairy, ghost, spirit, sprite, you name it. Because it gives us some sort of sense of control. The reality is you were somewhere and something weird happened and you got to experience it, which is really cool. That's the thing. Like, don't bury the lead. I think that's cool.
Yeah, and it's the thing with like the stories of Bigfoot and like Sasquatch as well. It's like sometimes people put the evidence on TV, and when you're looking at it,
Yeah.
it just sort of looks like a person with a big. Do you know like the ski jumpsuits that are quite puffy and things like that? There's never a clear
Yeah.
image of them, or like you said, by now because this has been going on for so long, surely you would find the remains or a body of a Bigfoot. It's not that well hidden, or you're going to come across it eventually, aren't you?
So this is where it gets fun, right? I've known cryptozoologists and they seem to fall into sort of two camps, right? There's the one that says it's an upright primate. You don't find the dead ones because they bury their dead. And I'm like, yeah, but the backhoe comes in to dig a foundation for a house. We're not going to unearth some skeleton
Mm.
somewhere. But so there's that. It's flesh and blood. There's nothing magical about it. But then there's the other camp that says maybe they're interdimensional beings, maybe they're aliens, and you don't find dead ones because they're literally beamed off the planet. And I know that starts to sound like pretty crazy. I understand how that sounds, but at the same time, we don't know how we don't know everything about how the universe works. I always thought time was probably the most interesting concept when it comes to the paranormal because time could explain all of it, right? Ghost is obvious. You see a ghost of a soldier from 100 years ago. He made sense 100 years ago, but he doesn't make sense here now. Like that's a slip in time. Loch Ness monster. I don't know. Is that a plesiosaur? Is that a dinosaur of some kind that made perfect sense millions of years ago, but not now? Is time sort of bumping into one another like
Yeah.
bubbles, like soap bubbles, and you see the other side and they see you and then they go back? I don't know. Aliens could that be us in the future? The thing that always bothered me about like the prototypical gray alien is that it is so human looking. It's got a head, it's got two eyes in the front, the nose, the little mouth, the spindly, just like
Yeah.
us, just like us. I mean, we look the way we do because we grew up on this planet, which has this level of gravity, this close to a star that keeps us this warm, and so on. If the Earth was like 5 times bigger, we would probably be lower to the ground and maybe like this amorphous blob, right? If it was smaller, we might be really tall and skinny, and evolution would treat us differently if the planet was in a different position, or if we were on a different planet. So why would we assume these aliens, which could be from anywhere, would look so very human, unless they're us, like in a 500,000 or a million years in the future, or 2 million years in the future? That's what we're destined to look like. I don't know, but I love the idea that maybe time could explain all this. And plus, like, what interest would aliens have with us? I mean, hands down, we have the best pizza in the
Yep.
universe. It's true. It's true. Of all the planets I've been on, the pizza here is unsurpassed. However, it's a long way to go for pizza. You know what I mean?
No, it is. And do you believe that, because there's other people that are saying that aliens are walking amongst us and we just don't see them. Do you believe that that could be true, or what's your thoughts as we're going into the alien direction at the moment?
Why not? So I've been called an alien human hybrid, Nando. True story. And I'll tell you why. I'm a blood donor. I give to the Red Cross pretty regularly. I've given literally gallons over my life because I have a rare blood type. I am A negative. And if you want to Google it, people who are Rh negative, negative blood, um, the is about 15% of the
I think
population.
I've
So
heard a
it's the
story.
minority of
I
us.
think, if I'm not mistaken, then Jenny will correct me. I think Jenny's experienced something like that as well with her blood type, or someone that she knows. Yeah.
So when I donate, I sometimes will post it on social media, and I'll say, "Hey, give blood. It's a good thing, right? You can help. You can save up to 3 lives with just 1 pint of blood. And if you like beer, after you've given a pint of blood, Nando, if you have a pint, whoo, it only takes one. It's cheaper." So Jenny's Rh negative too. So you get it, Jenny. You're an alien human hybrid too. So someone said to me, "You're A negative. You are an alien human hybrid." And I swear, if I had secrets, I'd tell him. But I don't know. I don't know at all if I am or not. I have no way to compare it. So people do believe that. The reality is, if you think about this, and this is the really cool part, we're all aliens. All of us, right? Some comet hit our planet all those years ago, seeded it with something, some stardust that turned into, amoebas, which turned into fish, which turned into monkeys, which turned into us. That's what I believe anyway. So we are some cosmic dust from all various corners that came together in nothing short of a miracle to produce where and how we are right now. And that's really cool. Think of what are the chances that we'd be talking to each other here like this right now? How many things had to happen?
Yeah.
That's really
No,
amazing.
definitely. And it's like the whole conspiracy with Area 51 as well. How much
Yeah,
information
yeah.
do they hold, or what do they know what's going on? And it'll be great to be able to just like find more out.
So here's a question I've asked. I've gotten to talk to many alien experts and UFO experts over the years, and disclosure is one of the questions people talk about. And so, Nando, you're in charge of the whole world. You're king of the world, and they've told you they're here. Here's pictures. Here's the bodies. Here's the craft. They've been here for decades. Yes, I'm telling you everything. They're here. Would you choose to tell people? Would you tell it? Would you announce it to the world, or would you say, you know what? I don't know if everybody's ready to hear that. What would you do?
Do you know, I know where we're, the way people are, I'll be like, well, not everyone's ready to hear the truth. So you would want to, I think for us, because we're in this sort of field and we delve into it a lot more, we're more intrigued to want to know more about it, don't we? But I think if we're
Yeah.
looking at the people that are not into it, I agree what you're saying. We're going to delve into the side where people are not ready to hear, see the truth of what's really happening.
And you don't want people to go crazy and
No,
hurt people,
definitely.
right? To start rioting or saying this is the end of the world, or what does it mean for the religion I was brought up in? Did Jesus die for their sins? Like all these things that don't necessarily have to affect any of that stuff, but would for some people. And I don't want someone to get hurt or riot or die because I put out information that not everybody was ready to hear. So maybe you'd put it out in little drips and drabs. being a Roman Catholic, you may have heard years ago, the Pope met with NASA. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, there's aliens, and we're going to find out soon. Because think about it. If you were NASA or you're some space agency, the Pope and other religious leaders would be among the very first you'd tell, because you'd have to say, like, start working on your messaging now. We found just a bug, like a bug on Mars, like a little right. Imagine the rover just picks up a little like skitters by. That would right. What
Yeah.
would that do to people? So 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 you tell the religious leaders now, and then the Pope issued a statement saying, "Hey, if life is discovered on other planets, it does not negate anything in the Bible or any part of our religious beliefs or whatever." When he put that statement out, I was just like, "Oh, I think it's getting close. I think they're going to tell us soon." So, thanks,
Yeah.
Pope.
No.
Hang in there.
Definitely. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to go back to sort of the paranormal stuff, but more into your books.
Yeah,
You've written a dozen
sure.
books. They've been published in over 6 languages. But one of the books did want to touch on is Who's Haunting the White House. What a
Yeah.
great story to tell. But how did that come about? Because, as you said, you visited the White House as a young lad, and then you went back. But I know that you got told some stories by people in the White House as well, didn't you? So can you share a little bit about that?
Sure, sure. Yeah. So, in my very first book, The World's Most Haunted Places, I had a chapter on the White House, and there was so much stuff, so much that I found. I went, "Oh my gosh, this could be its own book." So, a few years later, I went and it's a children's book. It's a middle grade fiction, nonfiction book, and I called the White House. I just called the main number, the switchboard, because I'm not very politically connected. And I said, "Hey, I'm an author and I want to write a book about the ghosts of the White House." And they just said, hold please. Okay. And then seconds later, I was connected to the boss. And the boss is the chief usher of the White House. That's a person who about 100 employees report to. And these are people, it doesn't matter which political party's in power. These are butlers, cleaning crew, groundskeepers, chefs, cooks, the people that maintain that building. And he'd worked there since like 1967. He'd worked there for decades and has seen and heard it all, you know? And so when I first told him, "Hey, I'm working on a book about the ghosts of the White House," he said, "Well, we're not interested." And I said, "Well, look, I'm looking at ghosts as kind of an innovative way to teach history to kids, because you can't know who a ghost is unless you know who a person was." And he said, "Go on." And so we spoke a little bit. I had to go through a background check through my elected rep, my local elected rep. I had a appointment. I got to go down there and go inside and not just take a tour of the main floor, but also interview some of the staff. I met a third generation White House
Wow,
butler. Like, his dad was a butler at the White House. His dad's dad was a butler at the
that's
White House.
cool.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine the stories that they could tell but don't?
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
otherwise you you wouldn't have that job. And so when I was talking to some of the people, I said, "Oh, I've heard the house is haunted." And they said, "Oh yeah, it's haunted." Like, just plain as day. Just like that guy at Ortzel Hall, the docent, right? He's just, "Yeah, it's haunted. Sure, of course." And people have said this, that. One of the things that the chief usher had told me is he was working there one night. He was with a police officer who was at his station, and this breeze came by and blew a door shut. And while that's not overly profound, it's the White House. No doors open, no doors close unless 10 people have approved it. You know what I mean? Especially at night after hours. It's not open to the street. You can't just walk in. And so it was one of those things where they had said, like, "I can't explain that and it shouldn't have happened." The most common ghost is that of Abraham Lincoln. President Lincoln is the ghost that comes up
I was
most
going to say,
often.
because I
Probably the most,
researched it, like curious after seeing your book, and then a lot of people are
yeah.
reporting about Abraham Lincoln being very present at the White House still.
He's the most revered of all of our presidents, even more than Washington. He and his was the toughest presidency. So his son died while he was in the White House. His son died in the White House of a
Wow.
typhoid like disease. His nation is at war with itself. That was the US Civil War years. That's what Lincoln presided over. So tens of thousands of Americans were dying nonstop. And I mean, I can't even imagine what that must have been like for a president. And then he paid the ultimate price. He was assassinated, for the office. And no presidency before or since has ever been that hard. ever, and God willing, never will be. So I think he's the most revered, and I think in a way, modern presidents who have any sort of appreciation and understanding of history summon him, right? And I don't mean that in like a let's hold hands around a crystal ball, but I mean, I saw George H.W. Bush, which was the elder. He gave an interview once where he said he was new in office. He had to send troops into harm's way, and he knew it was possible some Americans could be killed. And he said, I was really struggling. I was up late thinking about it. And then I thought about what Lincoln went through. And he said, if he got through that, I can get through this. And I think in a very tangible way, President Bush was summoning the spirit of Lincoln.
Yeah.
Like, please give me strength. You had it harder than I did. Be with me here, and as I have to make some of these tough decisions. And so, one of the White House chief foremen talked about how he went up on stairs early in the morning to turn the lights on, which was part of his duties, water the plants. And he said he turned the light on, and right outside of the Lincoln bedroom, which by the way was never his bedroom, that used to be the executive
Okay.
office before they added the east and west wings. That was where the president's office was. They said he said he saw Lincoln, sitting in a chair with his legs crossed. He looked at him and then just disappeared. And we know what Lincoln looks like. He's on our money. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so we see him all the time. And that foreman in particular, I mean, think about it. He's vetted. He's drug tested. He's psychologically screened. He's background checked. If he's as good a witness, as a reliable a witness as we'll ever find.
Oh, that's amazing to be able to do a story like that, and the fact that they confirmed to you that it was haunted. And but did you feel anything when you went to the White House? Did you personally feel anything, or was it just what was it like for you?
No, not so much. Now, keep in mind, I didn't get to go upstairs. The only way to get up to the living area is by invite of the first
Oh, okay.
family. And I like to keep my presidential campaign contributions right at zero. That's where I'm comfortable, because what are you buying? So I never ever donate to those things, um, which doesn't, quite earn me an overnight stay in the Lincoln bedroom. But I didn't feel anything other than a tremendous sense of awe that every single U.S. president stood where I'm standing right now, and as well as many foreign leaders. I mean, Churchill allegedly saw the ghost of Lincoln while he was
Wow.
there. There's a funny story. It so sounds like Churchill, where apparently he had just gotten out of the bath, and he had opened the door, and there was President Lincoln standing there, and he said something to the effect of, "Mr. President, you seem to have me at a disadvantage." And which is just so sounds like Churchill. So I mean, so many people have been in and out of that building. Decisions made there have literally reshaped the
Definitely.
world. You do feel this sort of sense of awe and power, when you're there. It's
That's
something.
amazing. And with all the books that you've written so many, especially like with folklore and everything. Is there a particular story that you've written that's your favorite, or your favorite book that you've published? Like, is there one that sticks out that is like, yes, this is one of my favorite?
I do really like my Christmas book, the Fright Before Christmas, because it turns out, I know Halloween's not as big over there as it is here. It's getting
Mm.
there. You guys are coming along nicely. You're working on it. Well done. I know you got Guy Fawkes night
You
just a
you
few nights
guys still
after.
up
So,
to, in my opinion,
oh
Christmas and
yeah,
Halloween. You guys go all out all the time with decorations, everything. I
yeah.
think it's easy to say you guys win over that.
Yeah, but keep at it. You'll catch up, right? So, Halloween is great because it gives our favorite subject a center stage for that. It's a great time. But everyone assumes Halloween is the scary holiday, and it turns out, from a historic perspective, a folkloric perspective, and so on, Christmas is really the big
Yeah,
dog, right? Christmas is really all about the winter solstice, the shortest day, the longest night, this cold season that's coming, and the monsters that lurk in the dark, ready to kill us if we're naughty or if we don't behave. And so, when you piece together how we got to now, I love that it's just riddled with monsters and ghosts. And I mean, think about all the wonderful ghost stories that used to be associated with that holiday before we moved away from it. Charles Dickens, of course, the master, with Christmas
yeah,
Carol, and what probably one of the greatest ghost stories ever written. And one that's just, we know that song by heart now, don't we? I mean, it's that powerful. And so I love the idea that This was always a time for fear, but in that darkness, there's hope, there's light, and there's redemption if you get scared enough. And I can't think of another, like, we always looked at the holiday wrong, especially here in the US. It was commercialism and Santa Claus and gifts and all this other stuff instead of, no, we give each other gifts because it's going to be a dangerous season. We got to look out for each other. We tell each other ghost stories because we got to be scared. We got to redeem ourselves, right? We got to find that light within to shine in this long dark night that's coming.
Definitely. That's absolutely great. My last question of the evening. I always like to find out what's going on with my guests, like what they got coming out. And you've just you were saying earlier on before we started, Shadow Zine that you've got.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to share that with everyone and let them know what this is going to be
Sure.
about, and what you're doing with it?
Yeah. So when I started in my writing, right, I worked, zines were a big thing over here in like the 1980s, 1990s. Zine is short for
Mhm.
magazine, right? So, but they were underground, right? Some of them were literally photocopied and stapled together and given out, right? The music scene or the comedy scene, it was always underground. And we were learning desktop publishing, and it was great. I worked on zines. We did ghost stories and stuff like that. And then the web came along in the mid 90s, and we were like, this is great. You spend like $80 a year, you can have unlimited publishing. This is awesome. All the costs of printing and everything else are out the window. We can reach a global audience. And the web got to be an amazing wild, wild west place. But then around 2010, social media came along and started to sort of consolidate everybody into one location. And then you had groups, like Facebook had groups for paranormal or cars or stamp collecting, whatever
Yeah.
you're into. And that's great. I understand that. We're now at a stage where, if you think about it, there's about 6 or 7 people who control the internet, and you know their names. The people who control Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, Truth Social, X, Reddit, YouTube. I don't know. That's where people spend about 95% of their internet time. They don't go to websites anymore. And the narrative is being controlled by these few people who are turning the dial politically, socially, wherever they want it to turn. And people are just getting spoon fed because you're clicking on what makes you angry and whatever. So in my infinite wisdom, I decided to just go back to the beginning like an idiot, right? I'm just like, all right, you know what? You know what can't be manipulated? Print. So Shadow Zine is literally a print publication by a different author every month. I wrote the first one, but I'm bringing in different authors. The second one was The Ghosts of Cornwall, England,
Wow.
written by a Brit, Richard Estep. So I'm going back to print. You buy it online. I mail it to you through the post. No digital copies, no AI, anything. I'm going all the way back to something tangible and real, because I think that's the only place left to go. We don't know what to trust or what to believe anymore, and print is so very real. So my hope, and so far so good. It's only been 2 months, but you're happier when you put your phone down, right?
Yeah.
Like,
The good old
yeah,
days where you just get a book and you sit there without any social. Because how many times you're
yeah,
reading something like on Audible or listening to something, and then something else comes up, and you lose, and
a
you
text,
literally lose
yeah,
concentration of what you're reading. So going back to the good old days where
yeah.
it's all just page, 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 and you can put your stuff to one side and focus on what you're reading.
So this is the crazy idea. So each one of there's no ads in them. I want people to pay for content, which is what we used to do, right? We used to buy music, we used to buy books and literature, and then a whole generation grew up thinking content's free on the web. It was, and I get it, but at the same, because I'm not rich either. I get it, but at the same time, the people that make that stuff have to eat, and if you want good content, you're going to have to pay for it, like we used to, like we did in all of human history until not that long ago. But now it's being controlled, and we need to wake up to that, because it is alarming to me that certain things just get suppressed, and sometimes not even political things. I mean, whatever. Hey, we're doing this charity event, and like they're like, oh, it looks like an advertisement. You shared a link, so the algorithm's going to suppress
Mm.
this, and you're like, wow, I can't even get the word out about charity. I mean, you monsters, help us out here a little bit. So I'm alarmed at where we're going, and that the AI fakes and stuff like that. The same thing everybody else is seeing. And I think the only way to go is to just go back to the basics, back to real tangible stuff. So I'm trying it, and we're going to see how it plays out. So yeah, it's shadowzine.com. That's where we're putting up each issue, and
And people can go on there
let's see what
to
happens.
purchase. What's it? You got
Yeah.
two shadow zines out at the moment, is it?
The third one will be out in a week. Third one
And
comes
is
out
it
next
something that
week.
you're
And
shipping
so
overseas, or is it just in America at the moment?
I just in America at the moment. I'm working on it. So the problem is they're all $10, and there's between the processing fees, the printing fees, the postage fees, the envelope, and everything else, that gets whittled down
Yeah.
fast. And I'm trying to figure out an economic way to put it in an envelope and get it overseas. Because what happens is, as soon as it gets above a certain weight, it's like $27 to go to the UK. Like, and you don't want to pay $27 for something that costs 10
No,
to ship it. You know what I'm saying? But there's no way around it. There's no cheaper way to get something across that ocean so
that's
far. So I'm
that's
working
a
on it,
shame. Well,
but we'll see.
hopefully, you'll be able to work something out with that, because I think that's great. I think that's great what you're doing. But anyone watching from America, what was the website that they can go and check out to see that?
It, it's shadowzine.com. And you can always find everything from my website and, my social media
Nice.
and stuff. But yeah, no, I look, I love the paranormal, and everything I do, I'm thinking, how can I take people into the story? Right? Some things are like a television show or a documentary, or visual or a video. Some things are an article or a little post, and some things have to be a full length
Yeah.
book. And my passion is just like sharing these stories, because I think they matter, and I think they make us ask big questions, like what's a cryptid, and what's good, and what's evil, and what's a ghost, and what happens. And I think that we can sort of explore our own destinies when we delve into these fringe topics. Because man, what's better than looking at the
It
weird,
is fun. It is a great field to be part of. And again, I always say it is getting to meet people like yourself and all the other people that I've got to meet along the way, and listen to all the different stories as well. Is it's an amazing journey. And then hopefully,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
it's great. But also you do a podcast yourself, don't you? The New England Legends, is that right? Where you're telling.
Yeah, and that one you can get anywhere. You can get that for free, across the pond, anywhere in the world. So, yeah, that's something I started. I focus where I live, the region I live, New England, which is the northeastern United States. And each week we cover ghosts, haunted places, cryptids, aliens, weird history, roadside oddities, and they're short, like scripted stories. So that we've got sound effects, we've got voice actors sometimes, and we just have a lot of fun exploring just these bizarre, they're like bizarre little audio documentaries of weird stories around here. And that's been super fun. I've been doing that for, oh my gosh, 8 years
Mm.
now, every single week. And it's really cool because our stories are like crowdsourced now. So we get emails all the time like, oh, have you heard about this? I grew up in this little town in Maine, and we had this monster. And I went, oh my, I've never heard of that. I love it. Like, that'll be the next one. So it's a really cool community of people that just celebrate the weird.
And where can people find that as well?
Wherever you get your
Yeah, so
podcasts.
like the
So Apple,
Spotify's and Apple and
yep,
everything. So
everywhere. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Pandora, anything. Yeah, it's all
so
over
I would
now.
definitely say go and check that out if you want to listen to some of Jeff's stories. And I've listened to a few of them, and they're great, and they are really good fun to listen to. So definitely check that out. I will put a few links in after the show. Um, but I just
Thanks.
want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to have a chat with us. Thank you, Jenny. Fantastic show as always. Generally love the topics. It's been great to sit down, listen to your stories and everything. And yeah, just thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been absolutely amazing.
Thank you, Nando. Good to
Thank
be
you. I'll
with you.
let you get on with your evening, and I will speak to you soon. Hopefully, we'll do a part two, because there's other stuff that I've got written down that we haven't even touched base on yet. So hopefully, we could definitely bring you back in the future and do this again. Um, but for
Sounds good.
now, thank you so much, Jeff. Have a great evening, and we'll catch up with you soon. Take
Cheers.
care.
Thanks.
Wow, what a great show. Some of the topics I didn't even have written down, going into the aliens, cryptics, but Jeff, great person to speak to, definitely go and check out his audio stuff, his website. He's got some great stuff on there to listen to, and I will put the links in after the show. But I just want to say again, thank you to everyone that's joined in tonight. It's always great to have you guys interact with us and also the guests that we bring on. It means a lot. But we will be back on Friday at 9 o'clock, half eight. We got Emily Paranormal coming on. She's going to be talking to us about her journey as a paranormal investigator. She's going to tell us some of the stuff that she's encountered. So another great guest. But for now, I just want to say thank you again to everyone. Thank you so much to Jeff for joining us. And we will see you back here on Friday at half eight. So take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.